Alrighty, looks like we are live. Stream is kicking off. Welcome. My name is Logan Skis, and I am a Marine veteran turned creative founder. I have the privilege of leading the team at VentureMap, where we build holistic visual blueprints to help organizations start, scale, and even sell. In this video, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is how to use Miro for project planning. Now, this is a 2024 update to a previous video I've recorded that has gained some traction in my own small corner of the universe. A number of individuals curious in this very specific topic have reached out to me, and in hindsight I realized that information in the previous video was over 2 years old now. So the interesting part is that last video was live streamed and off the cuff, so I figured it would be all too appropriate to memorialize that and do a similar thing in this video. My hope is that I'll be able to provide you with tactical insights on how to move forward. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in Miro. So for those of you who may not have seen any of my previous videos before, I have worked alongside my colleague Jack Hickler for a number of years with one goal in mind, and that's to visually represent an entire organization in one place at every level of elevation. Now, this oftentimes can be tricky. We're fortunate, though, to be standing on the shoulders of titans. Today I had a great conversation with some folks that saw some previous videos of mine and inspired this work. I recorded a hasty deck, and we've put together a number of presentations in the past. I've covered a number of these thoughts, and I figured there's still more to the story, and I want to do my best to tell that story and demonstrate some practical insight into how we use this platform. It seems like a lot of the people I meet are kind of stuck doing stuff like this, and they're kind of stuck in the whiteboard. They're kind of stuck in this spot. Maybe they'll maybe find themselves at this level. I've got a background in the Marine Corps infantry, so a lot of my stuff will end up having M16 disassembly cleaning cloth images randomly thrown in there. I guess it's probably an inside joke with the team and I. But I want to show you how to go from being in this state of just kind of throwing stuff into a board into having more of, at least hopefully more of a coherent, holistic blueprint. Coherent meaning it makes sense, it's integrated, there's a logic underpinning it, and it's pleasing to the eyes. At least it's not jarring to look at. So with that being said, at VentureMap, we like to think of the origin of all strategies, of all plans to come from our values. And values are something that are thrown around a lot. I like to say with my team and the teams that I support that values are so much more than just what's written on the page. It's easy to slap some text down, and any founder who's tried to do this knows it's actually a little more tricky than it may seem on the surface to connect to clearly represent authentic values for an organization. That's not always something that can be done like that. It can be tricky, in fact, and something that we believe happens over time to refine. I love to say that being a student of history allows you to understand patterns, and if you've got a curious mindset and your curiosity is at sort of the core of your mentality, you'll always be looking for lessons learned and to extract principles. And if you're seeking history, both your own and that of a larger sense throughout time, you'll be able to learn how to predict more effectively into the future and how to project and estimate. So we are a big believer of crafting an origin story after that point. The specific methodology we use here is from a book called Get Backed, and Get Backed has a fantastic framework that's based upon the hero's journey, which we think is quite compelling and straightforward, and we're able to gin this out pretty quickly. We do this new thing that allows us to have an AI read over that makes kind of cutting through the text easier. So we'll do an 11 labs read through with a Loom recording of that. So you don't find yourself just kind of having to cut through a whole lot of text. Now, next, mission statement. Over the years, we've struggled with this concept of mission and vision, and it's weird to think how they both exist and what they really mean. And having worked with many countless business owners and consultants, it seems like there's a unique meaning to everyone I talk to. So I'll just tell you ours. We borrow from Donald Miller from StoryBrand. He's got a number of books, a great online academy called Business Made Simple, and Business Made Simple University, I think it is. He's got a framework for mission statement that we appreciate, we like, and it makes sense, and we also think it exists quite nicely between the vision, and I'll get to that in a second. But he has basically economic goals. I believe it's 2 economic goals in it that are time-based. So it's really relevant and tactical and close at hand. It's not very lofty. So we like this because we feel like it's bite-sized. It's got a structure to it. And frankly, as a Marine, it makes me feel like it makes sense from that standpoint as well, because it's a mission. There's very little hopes and dreams and frills with a mission. If you're going to conduct a raid on an enemy village, there's pretty specific objectives and it's time-based and all of this. So I like that. So I tip my hat to Donald Miller for this framework. We do have an intake sequence that produces this thing. So there's some questions that we've basically extracted. We put that into a video ask sequence, and we pull out those answers, GPT it, and then splice it into Miro for our clients and sort of package this up into a culture collateral. I think we call it vision and values, sort of a package now for this piece. Again, this being the nucleus of sorts. So that's that. Next, we like the Vivid Vision framework from Cameron Herold. Cameron Herold is the author of the book by the same name, Vivid Vision. Love the book, love the author. Read his other book called The Second in Command about being a COO. His framework is quite compelling. It wasn't actually easy to get the framework for this. Had to listen to the book twice, had to take giant swaths of the book, run it through GPT a couple of times, and with his example Vivid Vision to sort of infer a framework. And he's got his own approach. I'm far from being as effective at building these as he is, and I'm also far from probably being pure to the methodology. However, we do things with our own style, and that's so basically I inferred the framework out of his book and then lined that up into questions. So we basically had an outline and then a bunch of questions, and GPT, of course, helped us get all of that. And then we put those questions into scripts, put those scripts into Synthesia avatar videos, and then put those avatar videos into Video Ask. So then all we have to do with our clients, or ourselves for that matter, when we revise these, is go through on our phones real easily, a quick series of questions. So you're basically looking at like a FaceTime call, so to speak, or close to that on your phone, and you can just respond with your voice or text and answer bite-sized questions little by little, and then that'll, all those little pieces will combine together, go into with a bunch of master prompts into GPT through an automation, and come out with this along with the prompts for imagery. Now the imagery is not, it's not going to win any design awards, but what we found is it's helpful, and it's the raw material we need to bring it to the next level. We're working on some experimental stuff right now. For example, that brings this is a rough example, but it basically brings it into a tome. Tome is one of our favorite presentation tools. So all of these will basically be more shareable, easier to read on multiple devices, and stuff to that effect. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't discuss the fact that this all becomes knowledge-based assets. So you can basically have all of that content in a document that's easy to upload to GPT, to make a custom GPT on it, all that good stuff. So it can kind of spin out from the blueprint, which is in Miro. It can spin out to a presentation that you can share with team members, with stakeholders, with clients even, and but then also spin off down the rabbit hole into the large language models like Claude or whatever. Okay. And the same kind of thing goes rinse and repeat down the rabbit hole. We've been inundated with training from the National Science Foundation's Innovation Core program on evidence-based entrepreneurship. And you can try to say that 5 times fast, and I think the only reason I can riddle that off is because I've had it in my head for the better part of half a decade or more, I suppose. And a lot of their methodology is based on incremental validation, a tight iteration cycle, testing, all of this experimentation. It's evidence-based, right? And they peel from strategizer methodology very heavily, which is business model canvas, value proposition canvas, Steve Blank's customer development methodology, and such. But we also bring in a number of other classic deliverables and some fresh kind of new ones as well. As far as we can tell, and from our view, there's 3 big pieces here that we like to attack after vision and values, kind of once we have that little, spirit seed, so to speak, planted. Then we start structuring the internal business model, a vehicle. I've got a mood board image that perhaps you might appreciate. This is the vehicle and that I've got in mind when I'm thinking about the internal model of a business, and it's the Nebuchadnezzar from Matrix. So we build out your Nebuchadnezzar, right? We build out the business, and the paneling is from all these different deliverables. So this kind of gives us viewports, facets in which to view different parts of the business model, the internal model. A SWOT analysis is a classic one. I mean, it almost needs no introduction. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. From there we'll do customer avatars. We think 3 is usually the sweet spot. We've got clients that'll do 4 or 5. We've got some that'll do 1. A lot of times when we get more validated in a model, we'll work on doing an anti-avatar or anti-avatars. People that we know we don't work, so we have that negative charge in our copywriting as well, which is valuable. Again, another shout out to Donald Miller from Brand Story. The brand script is one of our absolute favorite tools. It's a fantastic recipe to start going from that strategy formulation space into a go-to-market kind of environment. And Mama, hide. Mama, hide. So we like the brand script. It's a great recipe. It takes the hero's journey and brings it into the commercial sector. And of course, all of this comes from a package of questions. So we'll ask, I think it's 7 questions now, maybe 8. And then we'll take that package of data and we'll send it through a number of prompts. And from there, GPT basically generates all of the deliverables content for this, and we just visualize it in Miro. We love Alan Dibb's one-page marketing plan. This thing is sick. It's awesome. It's a perfect complement for the business model canvas and the other deliverables referenced. Truly fantastic book, great listen. We do a landing page outline. This is from the Business Made Simple, Marketing Made Simple methodology from Donald Miller again. The Grand Slam offer framework from none other than Alex Hormozy's book, $100 Million Offers. Aaron Fletcher's product roadmap, which is great for productization of services. It's a helpful lens to view it through. Russell Brunson advocates the value ladder pretty heavily, so we like to credit him for that, though I'm not sure if he's the one that made it. Probably not. He's the one that we learned it from, though. And then we use some more fundamental stuff like core processes, technology, capabilities, and then we fuse all that together into a pretty decent sized knowledge-based document. So there's custom IP that we can use to feed like specific business related intellectual property that we can use to feed a custom AI model, for example, and whether that be a custom GPT, something more sophisticated like a voice flow bot, or if it's just you talking to GPT-4 and wanting it to have context on what you're doing, it's kind of easy to copy and paste that. From there, of course, after internal model, it's external environment. And there's a number of things you can look at there: market size, market forces, industry forces, macroeconomic trends, and key trends. Each of these will kind of give you a so what slide and an analysis that comes with it. GPT supports all of that. So what used to take us impossible, it can now be done relatively quick. Everything to produce this has master prompts. These are a bit tricky because you want to ensure you've got very high quality sources, and GPT can get a bit squirrely when sourcing sources. So you got to have a few neurons online to make that happen, but not much. You know, it's like doing a 35-pound bicep curl. You'll feel it, but you're not gonna blow a tendon trying to make it happen. From there, you look at competitive analysis. We'll do a real lightweight version of that. Strategic partners and master prompt. After that, we'll go into validation. State of validation is key. If you read the books, the Strategizer series, you know you've got a business model canvas. Now what? Well, you have, according to the methodology, you have to frame out your hypotheses. And there's 4 domains of risk, depending on what era you're reading their materials. Sometimes they'll only talk about 3, but I like the 4 because it makes a lot of sense. You basically have market risk, delivery risk, financial and time-based risk. Each of block in your business model has an implicit statement or series of assumptions, or basically hypotheses that are pertaining to those domains. So there's risks that you have to effectively address, and this took some time. It's a little embarrassing to say it took us years to even have a clear picture in our heads of what the heck this even means in the real world, much less trying to use it in any way that doesn't require us to just become like full-time academics. Pretty sure we're on the tail end of that now and have a functional approach to making this. The big idea here, complement next steps to really leverage this, and all the master prompts and input data required stacked with questions and all this. So it's pretty seamless to the end user. You basically get a nice slide here that we can revise. We do the analysis, and then we frame out hypothesis. We frame out our what they call the assumptions map in the books. It's how important is it, and how much evidence do you have? If you got very little or no evidence, and it's very important to the success of your business model, it goes in the testing box. And this is kind of how we figure all that out. You know, multi-page sort of summary, on the logic, and then from there, based on what's in that testing box, we'll build an experimentation sequence based on an experiment library that's very common, and you could source that from any innumerable locations online. I love the book Testing Business Ideas by the Strategizer team, and there's a couple Airtable databases online with like straight up hundreds and hundreds of very detailed startup tests you can run that are categorized. So you can kind of say, okay, we've got a delivery risk here at a low level of evidence. We want to be cheap and fast, and you can kind of stack it. So there's a number of dimensions to these that you kind of experience when you plan. But bottom line is the end user gets this real clean piece. From there, we'll also map out the experiment cards. So there's a little more meat on the bone, so to speak, on what to do. Something we're really excited about that's going to come in future generations is traditional business architecture collateral, and that's going to look like more developed capability maps, value streams, and a number of other things we're pretty stoked about. We built our own little way of understanding a lot of this, so it's kind of like, so what? This is what we call the strategy nexus. It's basically just the business model canvas, a couple of other deliverables, all of it kind of fused in together. Market forces coming in, so like the environment forces coming in from the outside, hypotheses coming out from the inside, and then the primary vehicle in the center fused together with core content. And this is ultra geek, ultra nerd status. It's really for operators and architects only, but when we're working with the client's business, this is a quick reminder of where we're at, for us at least. Then we'll kind of switch schools of thought into the EOS methodology. So Entrepreneur Operating System, Gino Wickman and the other guy, you'll have to let me know in the comments. They've written a number of books, Traction, What the Heck is EOS, Get a Grip, Rocket Fuel, all of which are great books. They've got Rocket Fuel University, a free online course. They've got a SaaS platform, communities, chapters, all over the country. Very legit. Big respect for them. We love their approach. We have seen their approach implemented in great ways. More often than not, we see successful implementations are adapted and not necessarily pure to the methodology, which we see very common across the board, to be honest. That being said, they're basically, this is probably going to, may offend some of the purists if they ever watch this, but my personal view is it's like simplified strategic planning. Simplified strategic planning for small business owners. And that's not all of what they have. That's not all of what they bring to the table, but it is a piece of what they bring to the table in the methodology. So we take their planning horizon concept, and I don't even know if they use that term, but that's what it is, right? It's 3-year, 1-year, quarter type of thinking, and we integrate that with the rest. So now we have our vision and values and mission and origin story, and we've got all of that sort of core heart piece, that thing that's like the purpose, the why, the reason. The if you had nothing else, but you have that, you're in a decent place. Then we get a little more fancy, right? And we say, what are these genius strategists talking about? What is the Barnes & Noble business bookshelves filled with for the last 10, 20 years? And we just take all those books and stuff them into the mulcher of my brain and Jack's brain, and more recently GPT over the last year or so, and just nonstop try to splice together all these pieces visually, and for 5 years or so. And that's close to what you're looking at here. This is our best effort, and seeing it work in the wild with clients, seeing stuff fail, seeing stuff work, being surprised, being let down many times. That's how this has kind of came together. So this planning horizon thing is very effective. We really think it makes sense. So we'll sort of go through a different discussion at this point and talk about objectives. Where do you want to be longer range from here. So we talk about the big picture vision, 3-5 years out, in that abstract headspace. What's the big idea? And then we'll talk about it again, and we'll talk about it after listening to the AI version of David Attenborough read you through your vivid vision after doing all the other stuff we just talked about, and seeing some kind of inspirational mood board images and kind of being reminded of it all, then being like, well, where do we need to be from a revenue standpoint? Like, where do we want to be? What does it look like? What are the measurables? Blah, blah, blah. And we kind of goes, okay, cool. So where do we need to be a year from now? And then it's like, okay, well, you kind of have to start sweating a little bit at that point, but not too much. It's like, okay, cool. Where do we need to be 90 days from now? Next quarter, like where do we need to be then? And that's typically where we end up feeling like Atlas carrying the globe, holding a lot of weight on our backs, because you come to reality real quick. And you often have to go back and adjust things and realize your vision is perhaps a little bit detached from your capabilities and your ability to scale. So there's some vertical alignment that typically takes place, which is healthy, which is natural in my view and experience. But we'll get to a place where it's like, okay, yeah, for the next 90 days, we need to get all this done. Holy cow, that's a lot. And it can typically be like 7, 8, 10 things, and we work to compress. We work to prioritize, not necessarily to compress, although that oftentimes is a habit or a favorite of founders, to take 14 goals and then turn them into 5, but just make them 5 behemoth objectives that are impossible to do. So true prioritization, this space right here, this takes, if you do it right, some real thinking. It's a come to Jesus kind of a moment where you have to come to terms with your aspirations and your capabilities. So once you land on a place where, after a few times of looking at it, not just one day, but in our experience, you have to kind of get a sense for how this fares across a number of times of day, moods. Things in small business are typically a little bit of up and down, kind of riding the waves. So you have to really temper this, because this is an anchor point. And also, it would be remiss without bringing back in the experimentation sequence. This is the state of validation for the organization. So we have to think, well, what tests do we need to be running to further validate and reinforce our organization against risk? So sure, we have objectives that we need to grow, but sometimes what we'll find is there's divergent pictures being painted. So we have to align the two. It's like, well, maybe our business model and our picture of the environment and our state of validation isn't correct, or maybe what we thought was really important to test an organization actually isn't aligned with our objectives. So this space, it involves a little bit of an organic flow, despite the clean geometry you're seeing. So the experimentation sequence informs our quarterly rocks. And once you land in this place where your quarterly rocks are basically a title and a name and a number, right? If we do nothing else but this month, this quarter, then we're successful. And if we do nothing else but these two, then these three. And that's how you really have that sense of, okay, we can do this, that kind of battle cry moment. From there, in the methodology, it's kind of like, all right, break. And then the nerds will spend time decompose. I'm using nerds a lot because I think a lot of this is in that domain in which I squarely sit, which is someone who's very technical, someone who aligns the details. Our second core value is no stone left unturned. So you have to turn these rocks smart, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. And without that, it was a helpful exercise, but it's far shot from being executed. So once you go through, we usually will see about a week or so exercise after that initial strategic planning session. You'll need to really break them down, and then you have to get each of these really like checked. It takes some brain energy, right? You got to burn some calories. Once you have those things smartified, is kind of what I like to say. Then you switch hats. You take the strategic planning hat off and you put on your operational planning or your implementation planning hat on. One is a little more shiny and is reserved for the executive boardroom. The other one is covered in soot and has some nicks in it and perhaps a few tears, maybe a bullet hole. It should actually be a Kevlar, a helmet, a Kevlar. That's what project planning feels like, because it's like rubber meeting the road. And this is the point where you really are praying that everything else at the beginning of the line was accurate, was authentic, was actually represented in a way that's true to reality. Because if stuff is fluff, if stuff was just kind of made up, you'd say, yeah, we really want to do that, but that's actually not a goal. That has ramifications on energy, on budget, on timeline, on morale. And so we really we have some stage gates in place to double check, to triple check, to take a little bit of time, make sure they're not hungry or depressed, to really verify that their goals are the goals. So that being said, you get into your operational planning phase, you put on your project management cap. We like this approach. We like the decks. I like to say, if we're staring at screens for the majority of our work life, the stuff we're looking at cannot be ugly. I'm a creative guy. I like the aesthetic appeal to work. If you've got to look at spreadsheets all day, bro, my heart goes out to you. That'll never be me as long as I can help it. You got to be able to be pulled into the work. It can't be punching you in the eyes every time you see it. So that's why we use this approach of spacing and color and such, but we're uncompromising. Our third core value is set the standard. We want to understand best practice and move it a level up, to think at that next level. So you basically have a big rock or objective, right? Just to keep things coherent here. You land on what EOS calls rocks. These are basically big goals. You figure out between what you want to have happen and what the methodologies say you should do. In other words, your experimentation sequence, once you find it a healthy place, ideally, if you do it right, if you kind of pour out your heart and soul into the process to get this done, they will be very much aligned. They'll oftentimes be one and the same thing. They may not technically say, the experimentation sequence may not say exactly what your goals are, but they're pointing at the same underpinnings. They're pointing at the same concept, right? So you have this, you make it smart, and then you turn those smart rocks into project plans. I should say again, all of this is AI enabled. So having the SOPs to deliver this is pretty intense. So for example, intake sequence, SOPs, every, prompt for this individual SOP or individual step within this one. It's like a sub-step within a step within one deliverable. So it's like, one deliverable, all these steps, and each of these steps have sub-steps. And each of these things have GIFs, so visuals. They're baked into scribes. Scribes are awesome SOP tools, and then tutorial videos for our people so we can train them up. A number of our clients have offshore-based VAs or team members that they use to run their venture maps for relatively low fee compared to a domestic worker, knowledge worker. So we're on a case-by-case basis. We bring folks into like an upskill program where we share our internal training programs and employee training stuff with them. But I digress. If you're interested in that, let me know. But basically, you take those smart rocks, the smart goals, and you turn them into project plans that are aligned with the smart stuff that you made, right? Smart meaning specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-based, blah, blah, blah. You do standard project planning stuff, success criteria, communication plan, timelines, resources, all of this, risk management, budget, And once you have this, you present it, you refine it, each one at a time. You really get it clear. Then you move it into ClickUp or Asana or Notion, or you leave it in here. You could do Trello, Jira even. But that's that. After that, it's talking about time horizon. We have something called the weekly pulse. It's a 2x2. We have a sandbox. We have our objectives or kanbans here, our team alignment, asynchronous alignment, and our showcase, our big celebration. I'll finish with this. Sandbox is just where we throw stuff in that we talk about at a later time. So we always have a little zone where a shiny object comes up. We just throw a lasso on that and throw it into there. And to be addressed at a later time via live on a call or asynchronously via Loom. On a daily basis, we're big fans of the kanban, this sort of multi-pillar, multi-column thing where there's tasks. Or a small team, so we don't need very complex automations, and our decomposition requirements are relatively low. You saw how we define our projects all inside of Miro. These do translate quite easily into other platforms like Notion, for example. We're very at home and comfortable using this, and we like to work at a task level. I, as a operational leader, I'm a believer in bookending time. So based on the maturity of the organization and of the team, really, and in terms of their, like, where I'd put them on the trust and verify scale, high trust equals low verify, greater autonomy. Low trust equals high verify, very low autonomy. So it's like, how much freedom and independence and autonomy do you render the team? For low maturity teams, and especially in the remote and hybrid world where they're geographically dispersed in different time zones, I'll implement a daily bookend. Morning, start of business and close of business check-ins, and then we'll do live connection points at least once a week. For more mature teams, we'll do a 24-hour cycle of checking in. So here's what I did, and here's what I'm going to do. So at the EOD every day, and then we'll do a live call once or twice a week. That sort of keeps us on track while you're looking at stuff. And the Kanban is very straightforward: backlog, current task, blocked, pending review, and complete. And all those tasks are pulled from reality, first and foremost. All of this is basically what we would consider to be deliberate strategy. It's the stuff we think we need to do, and we've done our best to preconceive all eventualities and all of that. But to learn to be a student of deliberate strategy, you have to understand the emergent strategy properties that you're faced with as an operator. So reality feeds these task items, stuff that comes up. And then from there, your project plans feed the task list. And that's pretty much how it goes. After that, we do asynchronous alignment via Loom videos. We talk about our time blocking, and we're big into singularity of focus, into cultivating flow states as individuals and teams, and maintaining a very efficient but thorough alignment that's keeps everyone rowing in the same direction, reinforces relevant common ground, psychological safety, trust, mutual respect, all of that, healthy time management practices. And lastly, we love building a culture of recognition, of belonging, and a celebration. So we have a showcase, we have the trophy cabinet of all the cool stuff that we build, and when we come together live, we kind of make up, awards and trophies. For example, let's see, Jack's got the Deacon of Decomposition and Project Management Maestro. So we kind of like to have fun like that. I mean, that keeps the morale high, that keeps the unit cohesion high, and that's really important when it comes to strategy execution, specifically in the knowledge working remote space. You gotta go that next spot. You gotta take the next step to build cohesion. So through the camera, through the screen, through the microphone, you've got the human connection. So that's how we do that. So I basically talked to you from big picture vision all the way to what the heck are we doing this afternoon, and how it's vertically integrated. We didn't talk about the middle. That's really where the stuff is being built, right? It's everything up until now is what are we supposed to do? It's context, it's prioritization, it's delegation, defining what needs to be done when. And that's basically all I've talked about up until now. The doing of the things is my favorite part, to be honest, and that's where you see your business come to life before your eyes. We certainly can help with that, but through our flagship program, the Bespoke Venture Map project. But you can also do it for free with a blank template. For example, you can get this guy right here for yourself, and you can join our school community. We're sharing a bunch of our SOPs, a bunch of our training videos, not dissimilar to this one. Hope perhaps a bit more refined on the post-production. But that's where we're at. And if you're interested in learning a little more about any part of this, you let me know. Otherwise, thank you for jamming out with me. Again, if you want to do this on your own, just hit the link below and tell me where to send the template. If you want me to help you out, you can book time in my calendar. We'll jump on the line for free. Happy to share perspective, happy to share insight, and help you move the needle towards holistically blueprinting your entire organization visually within Miro. So that's all for now. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.